Okay, at this time, I'd like to call the February 22nd, 2018 meeting of Revere Traffic Commission to order. Would everybody please rise and join us in saluting the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we're going to start off with our request, and item number 1 is to amend Schedule 11 of Title 10 in regards to handicapped person parking areas by adding the following locations. Number 1 is 21 Beachland Avenue, and 2 is 31 Lowell Street. At this time, I'll turn it over to our Director of Handicap Affairs, Ralph.
These are the 2 locations that I just wanted to put on so that we set for a public hearing for next month. So these are the applications that we just got, so this will be the first step.
Okay. Do I have a motion before us to order this to a public hearing? All those in favor? Aye, the ayes have it. Move to a public hearing. Item number 2 is a request from Julie DeMauro, who would like to address the Traffic Commission to request a public hearing to amend Title 10 by adding the attached bike ordinance. See attachment 1 that's attached to our packet. Julie, will you please come to the...
Julie DeMauro, Active Living Coordinator for Healthy Community Initiatives Office. Just asking for a public hearing to change the schedule, Title 10, by adding some bike ordinances and also a schedule of our current bike lanes, bike boxes, and bike paths that we have. If you go to the last page of your packet, you will see just the different terminologies that we will be using with the expansion of bike infrastructure in the city. And then also just to recognize that the city will be following the Mass General laws regarding cyclists across the city as well.
Okay. Any questions by members of the committee? Seeing, hearing none, do I have a motion before us? All those in favor? Aye, the ayes have it. This will be sent to a public hearing. Item number 3 on the request is Council Novoselsky request to amend Schedule 8 of Title 10, parking restrictions generally by adding the location is Hitchborn Street. It's on the easterly side, coming off of Lee Burbank Highway to Franklin Ave, and he's requesting that a no parking anytime sign be installed at that location. Council Novoselsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. Ira Novoselsky, 53 D. Hone Street, Ward 2 Councilor. This came to my attention through a constituent that lives in a neighborhood and comes off Lee Burbank Highway at around the 80 Hitchborn Street, and from where the used car lot is up to Franklin Ave. And since we put the parking there and kind of restricted to only like 5 or 6 cars, I've noticed that cars coming off the highway do speed, there's no question, even though they're not supposed to, but cars coming up from Hitchborn, from Shirley Ave, they're actually almost butting heads, with cars parked on both sides. And I even noticed it's worse when we have a snowstorm and there's snow up there, because again, they can't get to the curb because people are still allowed to park up there. And it was very, very tiny space for sometimes one car, and I'm afraid that even a fire piece or an ambulance couldn't get through there at one particular time. So this constituent came to me just a couple of weeks ago and brought this to my attention. He's here today to kind of support this, and hopefully we can get a public hearing on this and move it along. And it's definitely a public safety issue. Thank you.
Joseph Cole, 250 Campbell Ave. I'm the one that brought it to his attention. The problem also is you come off the highway, people coming up Hitchborn, it's a blind lip. They can't see you, you can't see them till you're almost on top of each other. compounding it, the Franklin Ave traffic has no other choice. It's just a bad intersection, and it was only about, I'm guessing, 10 years ago that the parking on the easterly side was even added. So it's just a street that just doesn't have width for 2 lanes of parking and 2 lanes of traffic. And it's in a bad spot. So if it's decided to do this, beyond the no parking sign, could there be some yellow painting done too? That would really grab the attention. That's what I have to say. I do have one unrelated question that I'd like to get an answer to. With permit parking, and the stickers are designate your street, can somebody that doesn't live on that street that has a permit parking, can they park on your street? Adjacent, when they corner each other? Okay, because Walnut Ave parks a lot on Campbell Ave, and I wasn't sure that was good or not. Okay, that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Chief?
I believe it's 5. Yeah. Well, 80 Hitchborn has their own parking lot, and the house next to it has spaces for 4 cars. So where those other cars are coming from, I don't know.
Do I have a motion from the members?
I have a question.
Nick?
Are we talking about eliminating the parking on the side where Franklin Ave comes in, or on the other side?
Franklin Ave side, where that wall is.
On the Franklin Ave side?
Yeah, where the wall is, yeah.
All those in favor? Aye. The ayes have it. Okay, item number 4 is also from Council Novoselsky, who would like to address the Traffic Commission in regards to commercial parking. On behalf of the residents of Ward 2 and others in the city, I propose the following. 1, commercial parking permit in the city of Revere to be reduced to $100 per year from the current $420 per year. Reasoning, I know we're trying to reduce parking of commercial vehicles within the city limits. This is to mainly stop transient companies from using our streets to park their home commercial vehicles and other commercial vehicles parking in our city from neighboring communities. This should not totally harm the small business residents who live and work here and pay taxes here. The rules should include the following. The gross vehicle weight should be 10,000 pounds or less. The vehicle must be registered in the city of Revere. The vehicle must be owned and registered by an owner-occupied resident of the vehicle, and the business must have a City of Revere business certificate. Council Novoselsky.
Thank you, gentlemen. Ira Novoselsky, 53 DeHone Street, Ward 2 Councilor. I've received more than several phone calls from small business people in my neighborhood and several emails from small business people from around the city. And they're very, I mean, I say small, they're a one-man operation, they do painting, they do plastering. They have just pickup trucks or a small Econoline van, I don't know, 1,500, 2,500. And, they're being hurt by it. And I don't think we should be, and I understand what we did in the first place to make this originally happen, because we were worried about the Comcast trucks and the National Grid people that take their vehicles home, and others, and taxi cabs. And now I'm not talking about the big vehicles. I think we can keep them at the 420, but I think we have to be a little more sympathetic to our own people. And, I talked to several of them, and they're willing to pay 100, they could afford the 100, but the 420 a year really puts a kibosh on them. So, on their behalf, I'm reaching out so that we work something out. Excuse me, I'm not saying that exactly what I said here is gonna work, but I know the chief had some thoughts on it in the past, and, Chief Guido. And I just think we ought to look at this a little closer and see what we can do to help these local residents that live here, that have their business here, and spend their money here. So, these other people, I don't feel bad for, the other 2 people that, the businesses, they can afford 420, whether it's an Econoline van or a pickup truck or the trucks that they use. So, that's my pitch, and I hope we can look in the future, have a public hearing on it or come up with the proper wording in the way the ordinance is now, and look after our own people. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Chief Guido.
I agree with Councilor Novoselsky. I brought this up my first traffic commission meeting. And many people, their primary vehicle is either a pickup or a van, and they use it for their primary vehicle and also their work vehicle. So I thought it was a little over the top to charge someone $450 because they have a pickup truck versus a car and a commercial plate. So I think there's some room for improvement. 450 is too high, maybe 100 is too low, because we still would like to encourage people not to park in the street, so for still having a fee. But I think if it's a person's primary vehicle, someone's a carpenter or a plumber, and that's their only vehicle, and they don't have ladders hanging off of it and all kinds of equipment, I don't see what the difference parking a truck or a car in a parking spaces. So I think we should send this to a hearing, and maybe me and Sergeant Janino could work on some language to adopt going forward, and all the committee members could add their input, and the councilors as well. I'm sure other councilors have received complaints about this as well.
Any other members wish to make a comment? My only thing is the 10,000 pounds. I mean, 3/4 ton pickups and things, 10,000, you could have a box truck that's fairly good size, they will fall within that weight class, Jimmy.
I think
So
we should
can critique
spell
it a
out the
little bit.
vehicles.
Well,
Pickup truck no greater than a F-250, and a
that's what,
van not go by the weight.
A regular F-350 with 4 wheels on it, grossing around 10,000.
I don't think that should be
You're going to a
considered.
dually, you're going into around 14,000 pounds.
no, I understand the pickup thing, too, but you can buy a box truck, and you can buy any of those Isuzu box trucks with a 12, 14-foot box on the back of it. Yeah, exactly. And, that's what the original intent was, to stop these. I don't think the intent was to stop people with pickup trucks from parking in front of their houses. But we did have an enormous amount of like Comcast trucks and small livery-type trucks for delivery that were going around the city. So I think it's something that can be discussed. But we need to critique it so that you don't you try to do the right thing, and then you make it worse for the people that live in the neighborhood. So it's something we really need to take a hard look. I can understand. I've got a lot of complaints from friends of mine about, they've always had a pickup truck their whole life, and that's all they had. And it's their principal means of transportation, and it's not even got business placards or anything on it, and they're still getting tickets. So it's something we probably should deal with in a certain fashion, but I don't know what that answer is at this point. So I think we should order this to a public hearing and see where it goes from there.
Well, first, I'd like to see, have the chief and the sergeant get together and come back with their own ideas and recommendations, how to find a middle ground here. There's some work that we could do to make this a little bit more effective.
Mr. Chairman, one simple amendment would be to just exclude pickup trucks and a van so big, not box trucks, a regular van.
But
And that would probably cover almost 80% of the
But it needs to
issue.
be spelled out properly, yeah.
It should be spelled out.
Okay. But I agree with the chairman, but this isn't for box trucks and moving truck, just someone who, their car's a pickup truck or a van.
The original intent in this here was for the people with more than one. All right, we had a guy Washington Avenue with 5 vans down there, and they all fell under the 10,000 pounds, and they were parking them all over the side streets and stuff. And the original intent was to get the people with more than one vehicle
Yeah, this up on the hill, too.
off of the streets, allow them to take one vehicle home. So we got to tweak it up somehow in that area.
Mr. Chairman, I know we've been, the council's always been aggressive on commercial vehicles parking in the city, the livery, the taxi cabs, the oversized trucks, and I say oversized, I just used 10,000 as a guide because I thought an F-350 was about that gross volume weight. And we have to also include, the dual wheels in the back, and if we want to limit, some of the things I heard from other people was about limiting what they have on their racks parked overnight, with the number of ladders and the 2x6s for walking boards, and, not to allow them. If people want to do it, they have to unload their vehicle every night.
Because you see some of these small vans that these painting outfits have, and they got, 4 or 5 ladders on top of them with staging and everything else. And I think that's what we're looking to exclude. We're not looking to exclude, somebody with a pickup truck. That's their principal means of transportation.
Right, if it's a painting company and it's not registered at that location, a large, like Robert Pan, I just use his construction company they have smaller vehicles, but, it's a major company that has tons and tons of vehicles that park on the street, and they shouldn't be.
Yeah, we had that problem up on the hill here with Comcast. We had,
That's right.
They were going to one location, meeting there in the morning.
Parking the vehicle overnight.
They're leaving a commercial vehicle overnight, and during the day, they got their own personal vehicles, they're taking up the spaces. So you have an area that's congested to begin with, and parking's at a premium, and they've taken up, 10 spots, 24 hours a day, at least 5 days a week. And then if the van's there all weekend, now, it's a real inconvenience for the people that live in the neighborhood, and, nobody likes to see commercial vehicles parked out in front of their house when they're trying to do the right thing to keep their value up. So I think we need to look at it and need to critique it, but we'll just have to see what the sergeant and the chief come up with.
Just keep in mind, zoning ordinance allows no more than 1 commercial vehicle in the driveway. So if somebody has 2 commercial vehicles, they could park one in the driveway, and under this ordinance, one on the street.
Is there a limit on the size of that commercial vehicle on the private property?
No, it just says commercial vehicle.
Okay, do I have a motion to send this to a public hearing?
Motion to send to a public hearing.
All those in favor? Aye, the ayes have it. We'll order to a
Chairman.
public hearing.
Thank you.
Redraft that public hearing?
Mr. Chairman, should we draft something up so when we,
Yeah, I
We have
think
to
we should
advertise.
probably, have something you can
So-
pass out to us so we can take a look at it before the meeting, and if we have any questions, we can.
so when would the public hearing be? After the next traffic commission meeting?
If you, yeah.
So we'll look at something for the next
Come back
meeting
to
and have
Yeah,
the hearing after.
Yeah, you can
So
forward
let's
something
amend.
to us at the
Okay.
next regular meeting, and then the following, at
And
that
then we'll
meeting, we'll
decide
order
when
it
to
to a public
advertise it.
hearing.
Thank you, John. As long as we know the thing's on the roll.
Okay.
Something's being looked at. Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to go into the public hearing section of this meeting, and item number 1 is Schedule 9 of Title 10, putting parking, resident sticker parking by the following locations. The location is North Shore Road. The side is easterly from Beach Street to a point 200 feet north of Centennial Avenue. North Shore Road easterly from Centennial Ave to Dahone Street. Counsel Novoselsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ira Novoselsky, 53 Dahone Street. If you read this amendment, there's 2 sections on it. There's a remove section and an add section. Items 1 and 2. So actually, the first 2, we're removing them to make room for 2-hour parking on section 2. So this is reading from Beach Street down. We have 15-minute parking up to the parking lot driveway, and then beyond that at 1510 North Shore Road up to Shirley Ave. We're keeping the permit parking, but we're just making it shorter. And then we're popping down to Centennial Ave and DeHone Street along the little park, Sandler Square. We took the meters out of there, and we're making it 2-hour parking. So that's, parts, items 1 and 2. And then when you go down to number 3, it's a parking restrictions generally. North Shore Road, from Centennial to DeHone, removing 1 hour and putting in 2-hour parking. What we're doing, gentlemen, is accommodating not only the new businesses that are down in that neighborhood, we're also accommodating the local residents with permit parking, expanded permit parking, where we took out the meters, and it's a larger package than just one item. So if you want to take them individually, but they're kind of all mixed in together. So that's where we are for now.
So what you're asking for is to remove the current time restrictions that it are and replace it with 2-hour
2-hour
parking
parking,
for
correct.
all these
Right,
areas.
Right, it's Sandler Square, right by Jamie's new building, that block up to the driveway going for 7-Eleven. Then you have 15-minute parking. Then you jump over Shirley Ave. Then the permit parking stays at that point. And then you got the 2 15-minute parking spaces by Beach Street and North Shore Road.
That you want removed and put 2-hour parking in there?
No, that's,
that
all we're doing
stays.
is, right now, the book says resident parking all the way from the corner up to Shirley Ave, from
I
Beach
see.
up to Shirley, so plus it also says 15-minute parking, so
Right, yeah.
they're countering each other. So what I'm doing is taking out the permit parking at the 2 parking spaces and shortening it from 1510 up to Shirley Ave.
Okay.
So it's basically 2-hour parking that we're doing from Shirley Ave down to Centennial, and a little beyond in Centennial across from Alice.
Okay. Any comments from members of the board?
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second? All those in favor? Ayes, the ayes have it.
Thank you.
Item number 1, 2, and 3. Okay. And 4, okay. Item number 5 is to amend Schedule 11 of Title 10, handicap persons parking areas by adding the following locations: 85 Stanton Avenue, 141 Lincoln Street, 14 Thorndike Street, and 136 Fenley Street. Ralph, would you care to weigh in on this for us, please? Thank you.
Sure, I'm sure everybody got my email with my recommendations. If anybody has any questions on it, I could answer them.
For the edification of the public, Ralph, so 85 Stanton, are we approving or disapproving?
My determination is to not approve.
Okay, not. 141 Lincoln Street?
141 Lincoln is my determination is to not approve also.
14 Thorndike Street?
14 Thorndike is to approve.
And 136 Fenley Street?
And 136, I'm going to have to deter that one to Officer Gino, because I wanted to make sure he has the application and the proper paperwork, that everything was in check for us before I can approve it.
Sergeant Janino?
I have the paperwork for Friendly Street. Like Mr. Lester, there is a driveway over there, but it is on an incline, so it's not really handicapped accessible. So I recommend we approve that one there also.
Okay. So at the recommendation of our department head, Ralph, and Sergeant Janino, 85 Stanton Avenue is a recommendation not to approve. 141 Lincoln Street is a recommendation not to approve. And 14 Thorndike to approve, and 136 Fenley Street. What are the members of the commission? Okay, there's been a motion to accept the recommendations as by both our department heads and our chairman of the traffic, Officer Janino. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye, the ayes have it. So moved. Item number 6 is to amend Schedule 11 of Title 10, again, handicap person parking areas by removing 31 Reservoir Ave and 24 Mill Street. Ralph?
31 Reservoir Ave, I'm not sure if it's been taken down, but I do know that 24 Mill Street, after some confrontation, it is removed, because I drove by there the other day.
Okay, all right.
And reasoning being is there's no parking allowed on either side of that street, so it should have never been put up in the first place.
Very good. Do we have a motion by the member?
Motion to approve.
All those in favor? Aye, the ayes have it. Item number 7, is to amend Schedule 20 of Title 10, tow zones by adding the following locations: from Winthrop Avenue, both sides, Beach Street to Revere Beach Parkway, no parking during snow emergencies.
Mr. Chairman.
Can we, if this does go forward, can we make it effective as of next season?
Yeah.
Okay. I know Police Chief Gatto has been working on this diligently. We've had many discussions about this, so I'll defer it to the chief at this point for his comments.
Mr. Chairman, I know we've talked about this winter after winter, but I'm glad to finally see we're addressing this. All Winthrop Ave's cleared off, and then you come down there to Little League Park, and it's all congested because of maybe 4 or 5 cars. So I don't think it's unreasonable to make that a snow emergency. We'll plow it out, and they can all go back and park. But when we let them park there, the snow banks out into the street.
I concur.
So this is long overdue, but I agree with Sergeant Janino. We should implement it next winter, and maybe we can give a flyer to the 7 or 8 houses in that area to let them know that that's going to become snow emergency effective next winter.
Any other comments from the members?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like just to know your opinion as far as snow removal in that area.
I've been pushing for this for the last 15 years. It's something that I've wanted for the longest time, just wasn't able to get it through. And I'm glad to see that the chief is pushing this so that we can get this finally accomplished. Winthrop Avenue is a major thoroughfare through our city. It is very congested in certain locations, and there's no difference between Winthrop Ave, Park Ave, some of the other streets that we do have this this snow emergency issue, and I think Winthrop Ave is more critical that it gets done because the street is actually narrower than most of the other emergency arteries that we do have within the city. So I'm in full favor of moving forward with this recommendation by the chief. At this time, I'll make a motion that we accept.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye, the ayes have it. Late communications, the first one is to amend Schedule 11 of Title 10 handicap parking areas by adding 8 Pear Street.
I got a phone call this morning on this here. I think we should probably do an emergency sign and get it up in that area. My recommendation paper should be on the end of the week. Ralph?
Yes, and if at all possible, I'll put a request in to see if we can get that sign put up as soon as possible. Yeah, I'll put it into the 311 system, so it'll go that way.
Yeah. Okay.
Motion
To make it official, we'll have to order it to a public hearing, but I will put it up in the emergency, so we'll have to officially put it on the books. We'll have to have a public hearing next meeting, so I'll make a motion that we order this to a public hearing, but in the interim, I'll have the sign put up for you, Ralph, okay? Okay. Is that it? I don't see it. It's not on mine. Okay. Huh? I didn't have it on, it's cut off of mine for some reason. Oh, Okay, yes. Item number 2 on the late communications is a request from Council Pass that Franklin Avenue, Oak Tree Lane, Walnut Street Extension be designated as no parking on the odd side of the street. Council Patch.
Mr. Chairman, that's Franklin Street, that's a typo.
Right.
Councilor Charlie Patch, Ward 6, 44 Johnny Road. This was brought to our attention at the North Revere, was brought up at the North Revere Neighborhood Group. And I just want, if you could just forward this, if you could forward it to the next meeting. I still want to get some more input on it.
Okay.
And I didn't know it was going to be heard tonight.
He has to. It's going to change.
No, schedule the next traffic meeting, and then we can go forward after that.
Okay, so you want to schedule for the next council meeting, not a public hearing, the next council meeting, or you want to order to a public hearing so we can approve it at the next meeting?
I think you just put it to the your next traffic council
Okay, put it
meeting.
in the agenda. Yeah, okay. Okay, at this time, I'll make a motion that this request from Council Patch is put on the agenda as a request for no parking on the odd side of the streets on Franklin Street, that's a typo in that, Oak Tree Lane and Walnut Street Extension. Do I have a second? Second. Second, all those in favor? All approved, so voted. You got any real late ones, Chris? Okay,
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Councilor Novoselsky.
One quick thing, I know you talked about Winthrop Ave, I want to bring up an old issue. North Shore Road, Old North Shore Road, from the Revere Beach Parkway down to Kimball Ave. I've had some comments from residents that they would like to see emergency parking ban on that section of North Shore Road. I've even heard from people that work for Mass Highway, you know, the guys that plow the streets, would like to see it happen. So I would, you know, and I just noticed this morning across from Atlas, there's an old worn-out sign there that says emergency artery on there, so it was there once before. So I'm hoping we can talk about and maybe act on, again, for next year.
I've talked with Mass Highway, as you know, Council.
So have I, yeah.
And as far as Mass Highway is concerned, there should be no parking at any time on North Shore Road, whether it's snowing or not snowing, because it's a state highway. So they have no concern about us making that an emergency artery. So it's just up to this commission if we wanted to approve that. So at this time, you want to put this on the agenda as a request for the next meeting, Council? Yeah.
A request for the next meeting, and then
Okay.
we'll talk about the public hearing after that.
Okay, great.
Please. From Revere Beach Parkway northbound to Beach Street,
Beach Street, yeah. Yeah, because the fire end's
the
not a
whole
problem.
length.
Yeah,
The whole length. No, well, one side's no parking anyways.
right.
So it'd be the easterly side of North Shore Road.
Want to take it down to the circle or just the Beach Street?
No, that's after Kimball Ave, there's no parking at the island anyway, so after Kimball, it's wide open there anyway, so it's.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Any other comments from members of the
Mr.
commission?
Chairman, I agree with the council. That's another area I don't know how it
I agree.
changed from snow emergency to non-snow emergency. I've never understood that.
I've talked to Mass Highway, like I previously said, as far as they're concerned, they'd be happy if we never allowed cars to park on that
Right.
365, so
Right,
it's.
but they understand that
Yeah.
it's a residential neighborhood,
Right.
and they're not going to enforce the no parking, the prohibited on state highway
Right.
rule. They won't.
Right, but if we put snow emergency up, we're going to enforce that.
Correct,
Exactly,
Okay.
right.
Correct.
Exactly.
So that'll be another, if we're going to send it to a public hearing, we should at least notify the few houses in that area,
We're
so.
going to bring it up the request at the next meeting, then have the public hearing the month
Okay.
after that.
And you'll let the neighbors know?
And we'll advertise it. Okay? Thank you.
Do we have a motion?
Motion to place on next month's agenda.
Agenda. Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye, the ayes have it. Any other questions from the commission, or?
Mr. Chairman, since we're making great progress on snow removal, should we put on the agenda for next month to discuss making Endicott Ave one-way in the winter? Or should we wait for that?
I've
We've
spoken.
talked about it for
Yeah.
15 years.
No, I agree, Jim. I talked to Council McKenna, and I guess she's coming up with a plan to do not just Endicott Ave, but multiple streets in
Okay.
that area. So I will give her a call and try to move this thing forward, because I'm of the opinion that it shouldn't just be during the winter. If you're going to make it a one-way, you need to do it all the time. I mean, that becomes a real issue for us, especially when that gate is closed, as you know, Jim.
Okay.
You know, so we're looking at other aspects of how that one-way on Endicott Ave is going to impact the rest of the neighborhood.
I have one more thing, Mr. Chairman. We met this morning on the festival. It's not till September 8th, but we're going to move the closure up to Winthrop Ave into Beach Street, so it'll maybe a little less congestion on Winthrop Ave, up on Beach Street, Central Ave, so we close the footprint a little
Okay, great.
to open that up more, but I'm sure that'll have to come before the commission.
Okay. Very good.
Okay.
Thank you, Chief. Any issues, any communications that members would like to move forward at this time? Seeing and hearing none, do I have a motion to adjourn? I have a motion to adjourn. This committee will reconvene at 5:15 for a joint session between the Revere Traffic Commission and the Malden Traffic Commission regarding traffic signalization and pedestrian safety at the Roseland development at Overlook Ridge. Good afternoon, everyone. At this time, I'd like to call to order a joint committee meeting between the Revere Traffic Commission and the Malden Traffic Commission regarding the Roseland development up in North Revere. Prior to the meeting, would you please all rise and join us in a salute to the flag? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Deb, come forward. Just name, address, and
Okay.
who you
Good
rep-
evening, Chairman Goodwin and members of the Revere and Malden Traffic Commissions. My name's Deborah Burke, and I am the Executive Director of the Malden Redevelopment Authority, and I also am a member of Malden's Site Plan Review Committee. In addition to myself, we have several members of the Malden Site Plan Review Committee here with me this evening, and they include Councilor Jadine Seeker, who represents Ward 8 in the city of Malden, Michelle Romero, who also serves as the city planner in the city of Malden, Yem Lip, who's furthest over, he's the city engineer, who also sits as a member of the Malden Traffic Commission, as well as Chuck Iovan, who is a member, actually the chairman of the Malden Planning Board, a member of the Site Plan Review Committee, and a member of the Traffic Commission. So I want to thank you for agreeing to convene this joint commission meeting to discuss what we feel are important matters to be addressed by both communities. Just by way of background, probably myself, along with Mr. Paul Rupp and Frank Stringy, the planner in the city of Revere, have had a long-time association with the redevelopment of what was formerly known as Road Quarry, now known as Overlook Ridge, which is a residential development at the present time, being developed by Roseland Property Company, a Macaulay company. The relationship between the cities has been a solid, good relationship that spans maybe 20 years. in which we explored several different possible, some not so good and some very good redevelopment scenarios for the 100-acre quarry, of which approximately 50 acres are in the Malden side and another 50 are on the Revere side. The reason for our attendance this evening is that as part of our site plan review process, we currently have an application before us from the petitioner to construct 326 additional apartments on the Malden side of the quarry. And as part of that review process, we've been going through the documents and whatnot, and the Site Plan Review Committee has recommended a series of traffic mitigation measures to impose on the development in light of the fact that the Route 1 realignment project seems to have fallen off the table, at least for now. And most recent projections said that the earliest it would ever get back on the tip would be at least 2030, and that's 2030, if not later than that. So I wanted to invite the city planner from Malden up to walk through the various mitigation impacts that have been approved by the Malden Road Quarry Site Plan Review Committee, have been accepted by the developer, Roseland Property, at the last meeting of the Site Plan Review Committee, with the caveat that some would require, if implemented, the approval of the City of Revere, because they impact streets in the City of Revere, and they would also, in some instances, require approval from the Massachusetts Department of Transportation. So this is our first step in our two-part process of going in front of a joint commission hearing to receive both parties' endorsement, and then our next visit will be with MassDOT. So if I can invite Michelle Romero up, I'd like to. Okay.
Thank you, Debbie. My name is Michelle Romero. I'm the city planner for Malden. And as Debbie just outlined, we are here before you to discuss the recommended mitigation for traffic and safety impacts of this project. As Debbie also mentioned, this project, or this current portion of the project, which is 326 units, is currently under review by the Malden Site Plan Review Committee, the Road Quarry Site Plan Review Committee, excuse me. We held the first public project review meeting back on November 29th, 2016. And we've had subsequent meetings in January of 2017, January 18th of 2017, January 31st, 2017, February 28th, 2017, October 3rd, 2017, January 23rd, 2018, and most recently on February 6th, 2018. The committee has repeatedly tabled its review and decision on this particular proposal to allow the developer the opportunity to provide updated and current traffic and safety impact information, to give the city the opportunity to review that information and to evaluate whether the traffic and safety impacts will be adequately mitigated by this developer. The master plan for the project that was approved by both our cities has always contemplated a direct connection to the site from Route 1. In the package of materials that you have that was distributed in advance, and we also just distributed paper copies, you do have a copy of the most recent master plan. It's dated 2015. It looks like this. I think it's the last page in the package. Of paramount concern, as Debbie mentioned, is the fact that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has indefinitely delayed the Route 1 corridor improvement project. That was to include a new interchange to provide direct access and egress from Route 1 to Overlook Ridge Drive. As Debbie mentioned, the state does not expect to fund this project in the near future, and in fact, the project is no longer a priority on the state's long-range traffic improvement plan. Nonetheless, we're here before you to discuss the traffic impacts and safety concerns on local roads in both cities that must be mitigated. As Debbie mentioned, the developer has agreed to implement the recommended traffic and safety mitigation measures that we're presenting tonight. Those are detailed in a spreadsheet format, which is also in the package. It looks like this. There are 11 different locations There's also a map included in your package, which I realize is kind of small to see. It's numbered with the same locations that correspond. We have 2 large copies of the same map here. And I don't know if the groups want to each take one, if that would assist, to look easier. Maybe a little easier than the small map. So as Debbie mentioned, all these locations that are recommended for traffic and safety mitigation were reviewed by the city's peer reviewer, Beta Group. All of these measures are recommended. The committee has requested that the developer attend this joint meeting, and I will thank you again for convening this. I appreciate your time and attention for this. We're here to present these proposed traffic and mitigation measures, as Debbie said, for review and approval. We will be going to the Mass DOT for review and approval of those intersections and locations for mitigation that require Mass DOT approval. But we will be going after we hopefully successfully receive your approval. Finally, I just wanted to mention, as the city is, I'm sure both cities are aware, the project is subject to the Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act, the MEPA review, and it is governed by special review procedure certificates issued on August 16th, 1999. For the record, there was a final impact report and certificate issued on November 15th, 2002, and notice of project change certificates issued on July 1st, 2005, February 6th, 2009, December 22nd, 2017, and that is under EOEA number 11971. However, for those local intersections not under Mass DOT jurisdiction, the determination of appropriate mitigation measures must be made between the developer and the respective city. Again, that is why we're here before you. After this meeting and going to the Mass DOT for its review and approval, the Malden Row Quarry Site Plan Review Committee will reconvene and consider the pending development proposal. I want to mention, or I would like to reference, if any of the members of either commission would like to see any of the traffic impact data that's been submitted by the petitioner, I do have copies of that. We also have copies of all the MEPA filings, as well as the notices of project change and certificates that have been issued. We didn't include that in your packages, but we do have copies of everything. I will pause. I don't know if there are any questions or you want to begin to go through the list. If you would like me to take you through the list, I can do that. Or, you know, it's up to the chair. There are a couple of the items before we do that. I should have mentioned that you also have in the package that relate to the improvements. One is the signal concept plan for the Overlook Ridge Drive Salem Street intersection. Along with that, you have the signal warrant analysis for that intersection. You also have a cost estimate for that intersection that the developer has, that the developer has presented. And you also have in that package the Route 1 sign and pavement marking plan, the Mass DOT sign and pavement marking plan from 2017, which is also one of the items. So I'll pause. I don't know if there are any questions or how the chairs would like to go through the list.
Okay. At this time, I'll open it up to members of the commission on either side. I see that Chief Guido here is.
Hello, Chief Guido.
Hello.
I'm confused. I know Council Patch made a council motion to have some sort of pedestrian activation at this location, but I don't know how Malden got involved in signalization in a Revere intersection. I'm just confused. Is that as a result of Council Patch's motion?
We did receive a copy of that. It was a letter from Frank Stringy that we received that detailed that particular intersection improvement that you're referencing. Just give me a moment to find that.
If I can just, I mean, back in August of 2017, this commission approved a recommendation for a pedestrian-activated traffic signal at that intersection as a result of Constable Patch and residents up in the area requesting the need for pedestrian safety. So that's the letter you're referring to.
Yes.
So these other recommendations, the recommendations for full signalization, did that come from Roseland's engineer, or was that by your peer review beta group?
That was through the peer review process. Our city peer reviewer looked at the entire corridor, including that intersection. And whereas that is the only way to get in and out of the site, and, you know, a large portion of the site is in Malden, that intersection was looked at. We reviewed all the intersections that were originally identified, or excuse me, I should say, we asked the developer to update the traffic information for all the intersections, signalized and unsignalized, that were originally identified in the state documents. That was one of them. So then, in turn, that whole list got peer reviewed when we submitted it for our peer review. So that's how that came about.
I'm very happy about that because you could have just ignored our intersection and let them build their buildings, and we would have been stuck with all the traffic. So I'm very happy that this came about and that you did your due diligence.
On the Malden side, wishing to weigh in. Some of the concerns that I have, obviously, is with the traffic data and the studies and numbers. Is this inclusive of the new 3 buildings that they're putting in and the potential for, 300 some odd more additional cars that are going to be added to the traffic pattern on a daily basis? Or is this just something that is from the data of what is existing there presently?
We did ask the developer to update all the traffic information, so it's for what's existing on the site, and there are almost 1,600 units on the site, and including the new 300.
The additional 300,
yes.
so
It's
that-
not just for the
So to be a
300.
total of 1,900, 2,000 units that this traffic study was conducted under.
I believe that that's around the number, right. It did include the entire project to date.
Mr. Chairman, one question I have, do you expect both traffic commissions to weigh in on each one of these 11 measures and give you a recommendation of what, that we approve them or not?
I think the way that we understood, whereas some of the intersections are in Malden and some are in Revere, although I think we might all agree that there is mutual impact, regardless of the exact location of the intersection. We would like the appropriate traffic commission to weigh in based on location. Certainly, the Malden Traffic Commission can weigh in on, in terms of giving an opinion, but we don't believe they would give an approval type opinion for a Revere intersection. We would ask the Revere Traffic Commission for review and approval of those locations in Revere. Of course, you're welcome to weigh in on some of the other locations, but again, that would, I guess, be a sort of advisory opinion. We thought, since there's so much mutual impact, that was the idea to hold the meeting together.
Yeah, it's a great idea. So why don't we go through each one of these individually and we can discuss them? And
Do you want to go through them, or do you want me to read them out loud for the record, or how do you want to proceed? Or you
yeah,
can
that's
read
fine. You
them.
can.
Okay.
You can read them, or
present them.
I'll read them, it
Okay.
doesn't matter.
Oh, you wanna read them?
It doesn't
Okay.
matter, you can do it if you'd
Okay.
like. I mean, I'll do it if you so choose, it doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind doing
Right.
it, and then you can discuss. So the first intersection, or the first location, is number 1 on the map, and it's described as eastbound Salem Street approach to Lynn Street. So that's south of Route 1, that is in Malden. So I'll give you a minute to look on the map. The concern to mitigate is that there's a non-functioning 3-way beacon on the existing island. And by non-functioning, we mean none of the lights work. So the recommended mitigation is to replace the lenses and/or repair. And I think I said this as part of the presentation, or Debbie did. all of these that were recommended, the developer has agreed to. At the most recent public project review meeting, they agreed to all of these items. And by agree, I mean to implement them.
Yeah, I would agree that that definitely is, that recommendation has to go forward. This intersection is heavily impacted in the AM and PM peak hours. It's difficult getting off that ramp and onto Salem Street, with Salem Street traffic heading westbound or southbound towards Malden and Revere. So we need some kind of traffic measure control there to slow down traffic.
Do you want to go through the whole list and then go back and revisit the approvals, or do you want to do them individually, or?
That's fine. Why don't you
Okay,
summarize
we'll go
each one,
through-
and then we'll
okay,
go back
so
to
I'll
each
do
one.
that, okay. I didn't want to delay you, okay. So the second location is number 2 on the map. It's known as the Overlook Ridge Drive intersection with Salem Street. That's located in Revere. Again, that is the only access egress point for the entire development site. The concern to mitigate is the eastbound Overlook Ridge Drive, left and right turns to Salem Street are projected to operate at level of service E and F. The intersection exhibits poor operations at the approach to the sole primary access point to the development and pedestrian corridor. As you had previously recommended, a pedestrian signal. The recommended mitigation in this package is installing a fully operating traffic signals. And again, you do have the sketch, the concept sketch, and the estimate that went along with that. You also do have the warrant analysis for that intersection.
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple of questions.
Chief Guido.
If we were to approve this project as it's proposed, after it's completed, who would own the lights? City of Revere? Let's say a truck hit the lights and we didn't find out who hit the lights. Would the city be on the hook to put up new lights?
I mean, I believe so.
Okay.
It's a city, that's my understanding. I don't know if anybody has any additional.
And my second question is, let's just say we put the lights in and it causes a problem, like in Chelsea on Broadway in front of Walgreens. It was causing such a problem, they ended up putting the lights on flashing. Would that be our call?
I would think it would be.
Okay.
You would, that's my understanding.
Those are my
You would
two
have
major
control
concerns.
over it, right.
And my third question is, I might as well ask it now. Number 3, is that going to be one of those signs that says red signal ahead on the curve, the blind curve coming
Yeah.
towards Linden Square?
I believe, this is on 122 Salem Street, number 3?
Yes.
I believe the recommendation was an additional beacon. So
Well, I
that's a-
think we
a
need
light.
one of those
Okay.
signs that says, when the signal's red signal ahead. It's an actual sign.
In addition to the beacon?
No,
Oh.
instead of the beacon.
Okay,
Because the beacon could be red up the top of the curve. By the time you get to the bottom, the light could be green.
okay.
So I don't understand the purpose of the beacon. Go ahead, Bob.
Bob, why don't you step to the forefront?
That's my biggest
Coming to the
concern.
podium is Bob Buttons from CDM Smith. He will,
Do you mind if I leave that? Okay.
Bob, my biggest concern is the light at the bottom of the hill's red, and you're coming around the blind curve, and people tend to not obey the speed limit, and they're not going to have time to stop.
Yeah, the peer reviewer's issue here, Chief, was related to the curve and that flashing curve arrow that's there. He basically wanted another curve, another
Okay.
flashing sign on the curve there. And that's actually what the 3 along Salem Street were, is to
Okay.
make the drivers aware of those curves. That's why we were looking at the crash data that you provided to us, was to see if there were actually accidents in that area, which we haven't found a history of those curves causing problems, at least in the last 3 years.
Right. I'd be more inclined
We get.
to have a sign that says red signal ahead. So we can discuss that, but I don't think we need 4 and 5, but we'll talk about them when we get to them, the beacons.
One issue with that particular sign, when you were talking about control of it, I was going to hold till later, but I'll just mention now, that's right at the limit of state highway. So the backup and the impacts of that light to Route 1 have been a concern of
I'm
the highway
talking the
department.
other way.
No, I'm just saying, I'm backing up to the other question you had about if you turn that into a flashing light, could we just control it? Because it's right at the limit of state highway, the state highway department's concerned about impacts of any light flashing or otherwise affecting the mainline traffic on Route 1. So that was the point I was just trying to.
Well, I think their concern would be the lights being operational and backing up the traffic, not being on flashing.
But I'm just
That's
saying,
why I'm asking
anything with
that
light.
question.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. You know, I have like one question. What actually drove for I know the Council Patch put something in for a pedestrian signal up there because, you know, everyone in this commission was concerned about the public safety nature of the issue that existed up there. But what drove the issue of a full traffic signal? Was this because they don't feel that there's a traffic problem there presently, Bob, and it's going to get exacerbated? Because we don't see any real backups coming in and out of the site. And the big concern that was always intimated to me was the fact that people had to cross the road because they were getting off the bus. And somebody made a real point before coming into this meeting, was it ever considered to put an MBT, a bus stop, on the site in the turnaround so that the people would not have to get off the bus on the opposite side of Salem Street and they could get off right in the Overlook Ridge project? Was that ever taken into consideration, or?
In the 20 or so years I've been involved with the quarry up there, there's never really been discussion of the bus pulling into the site. The issue with pedestrian safety and getting back and forth, I think, is not an appropriate one. The real issue is the backing up of traffic with a regular signal there all the time. That was an issue that came out of the peer review, not necessarily one that was driven by the traffic numbers, because when we did the analysis on the traffic document, it's a report, the stick that we have, that was submitted to Mass DOT and to MEPA through the Notice of Project Change process. And they didn't bring up an issue with signalization or question whether there should or shouldn't be. We didn't specifically say we want to put a signal here. We analyzed it without a signal and it met the traffic requirements at that point in time, so.
It did, without the signal.
Without the signal.
Right, well, that's what I'm kind of getting at.
Stopping at 1,900 units.
get it.
If you go beyond that and it's more, it's a different traffic analysis, but based on the analysis that we did, it didn't require a light. And in fact, we looked at crash data again. There were 3 accidents that were reported on Overlook Ridge Drive in that 3-year period, and one of them was in the parking garage. So we don't have a history of accidents occurring as people are trying to make that movement.
Yeah,
So
I mean, these, you know, the numbers are always funny, Bob, but I have some accident-related data for that whole stretch, not necessarily in the front there. And, you know, probably within a quarter-mile stretch of that area.
That's what we looked at, the police provided to us.
And Chris, why does that number differ? Because the package I have says there was one there in the last 12 months, and I have the data that you issued to me saying that there were 16 related accidents in that general area, not, you know, in the front there, but on Salem Street from right up to the.
We took the data from both Revere and Malden and then looked at it. Some said Salem Street, some
Right.
said Salem at Overlook. So a lot of it came down to how the police report was written and what was sketched out. So we actually went through every one of the reports that both police departments provided in order to break down where the accidents were occurring when we could.
So the data suggested to you, Bob, that the traffic signal wasn't required, but there was some public safety requirement for pedestrian crossing.
It wouldn't be inappropriate to have a crossing there to get people back and forth from the bus. Yeah. It wasn't, there was no evidence that I saw of people getting hit necessarily
Right,
crossing
correct.
the street, but we've acknowledged that the developer would do any of the work, so.
So based on the analysis, the full light wasn't required, It was just something they were adding in to strengthen their case, so to speak.
And I think that, there's a perception that the numbers necessarily don't match, if you will, that just the generation doesn't necessarily match where people are thinking that some of the traffic is coming from. It's a lot of pass-through traffic in that area.
No doubt about it. Yeah.
Not necessarily all from the site.
Right.
Mr. Chair, I have one more question.
Chief Gatto?
What is the maximum potential of that site? Is there more room after 1900?
So, Chief, the last notice of project change that we just did last fall actually backed the approval down from 2,800 to the 1,900 that's there now. Any future build-out of the site to get back to 2,800, whatever the full build would be, would require another notice of project change to MIPA and would require a fully updated traffic analysis to support it. So we have some plans with us that show what the lots are that are left on the site after this particular phase is built. I can share them with you at any time. So they're stopped effectively at the end of Lot 12. There's no further MIPA approval or Mass DOT approval. We would have to go back and work out some additional traffic mitigation at that point in time.
Mr. Chairman,
Chief?
I know we didn't ask for a full set of operational lights, but if we're allowed to put them on flash and if need be, I don't think it would hurt to have the full lights installed where we're not paying for it. Because if we determine we need them down the road, we'll be paying for them. So I think we should move forward and see what Mass Highway says. And then final approval won't be till after Mass Highway weighs in, but we could at least send it forward to them and see their thoughts on this.
Well, it's before them now, as I read in the package that was sent to me, right?
We have already gone before Mass DOT with the notice of project change and the traffic information. What the Road Quarry Site Plan Review Committee in Malden, I think, was saying was that they wanted to go back again and re-review the information with the benefit of both cities being there. I would say that in the past, in the full master plan and when the master plan had the site fully connected to Route 1, there absolutely always has been a signal on Salem Street, but it's been more in front of where the fire station is, where the future connection to Route 1 would go. Frank, I know you were part of those discussions. Not necessarily in the location it is now. That location is in theory temporary because the boulevard, if you look on the master plan that they handed out, is in a different location from where it is now. We have more, if you'd like us to hand them out to everybody.
I have the small one.
Site as it exists now, chief, this is the building that they're talking about, all that stuff is built. In the end of the day, it will be sitting there because it would connect in. There's just a blow up of Salem Street right out front with the signal and the crosswalks.
Do you have an extra, what
We
you
have
handed
20,
out?
yeah,
Okay.
just, we're handing them out now, Michelle.
What are you handing out? The same thing?
A rendered plan to help folks understand what's built at the site now and what is proposed with Lot 12, as well as a blow-up of Salem Street showing where the light is and what the queuing and weaving distances are for the cars on Salem Street.
Thank you.
I also have a full-size plan if anybody wants to see the full-size sheet too.
If I could add, I'm not a traffic engineer. Our city peer reviewer could not be present tonight. He had a prior commitment. Yem Lip, who is our city engineer, has some traffic engineering experience, but I do want to call your attention to the warrant analysis sheet. And it's my understanding that several of these analyses were met, so a signal is warranted. Warrant 1, Condition A, minimum vehicle volume warrant is met. Warrant 1, Condition B, interruption of continuous traffic warrant is met. Warrant 1, combination of warrants 1A and 1B is met. Warrant 2, a 4-hour warrant is met, and Warrant 3, a 1-hour warrant is met. So it's my understanding that the signal is warranted. And this was actually presented to the Row Quarry Site Plan Review Committee by the developer's engineer. So that's my understanding, that this supports the request for the full signal.
So if I could, yes, Mr. Chairman, Ms. Romero is correct that some of the warrants with respect to the traffic volumes and whatnot were met, but part of what you look at when you look at the warrant is not just the number, but also the geometry of the road and where the ramps and the curves and that type of thing are. So just because you have a number of vehicles, it says right in the MUTCD manual, that just because you trip a warrant doesn't necessarily mean you automatically install a signal. So that, I just wanted to clarify that one point.
Well, Mr. Chairman, that's,
I might add too, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, the developer has agreed already to put in a signal. We're not really arguing about a signal at all. It's really, is it in the right location, and will it create more safety issues than it will solve? That's I think, the question.
Right. I mean, I think that's the concern of most of the people before us. I would obviously like to see how Mass Highway is going to weigh in on this, considering the queuing coming northbound, coming off the ramp there, and what impact that could have with cars coming off there kind of fast, and what that signal may do. You go up there during the day, it's fine, but during the height of the commuter traffic and special events that may be taking place in Revere Beach on Route 1, the traffic in there is pretty difficult. So I'd like to see how that signal would impact the queuing coming and going from Route 1, and if they feel they need to make any adjustments to that. I'm not, I think the concern was for pedestrian traffic more than the flow of traffic. We do know there's a problem up there, and my opinion, I could be wrong, I'm not an engineer, I'm not saying that, but if you're stopping cars for X amount of minutes when there's no flow coming in and out, what is that going to do to back the traffic back into Linden Square and beyond? So that's the concern that I have with that signal.
I agree, Mr. Chairman. I mean, this package includes a pedestrian actuated signal also. But the concern, obviously, as you mentioned, is how does this impact the flow of traffic on Salem Street and add further backups down to Linden and further up Salem Street. So right now, it flows pretty good through that intersection, but to add another interruption in there could just make things worse further down in both directions.
And to clarify, we haven't presented this, we, meaning the cities, have not presented this to the Mass DOT. We understand the notice of project change was filed. We understand the state didn't comment on it, but we have been repeatedly asking for a definitive answer from the state, which we have not received. We haven't asked for it yet, but it's our understanding that the developer has not asked for a definitive answer either. They have comments and some information that's been presented, but there has not been a specific determination, definitive determination made, and that is what the cities will, work to facilitate a meeting with Mass DOT in both the cities, whichever city representative, perhaps the city engineer, or I'm not sure who would attend, where this will be vetted out and discussed for approval.
Chief Guido.
Mr. Chairman, whatever we decide, I think it's imperative that some sort of signage go in the area of number 3, whether it says cars exiting ahead. If we put some signal there, whether it's pedestrian or full signal, we need something to let people know around the bends, a red signal.
I can't.
So that's the least that needs to come out of this tonight.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more, Jimmy. We do know that Sully's Curve up there is a very dangerous intersection. I know that the fire department is up there numerous times, and of course, there's little skidding accidents and things like that, especially during inclement weather. So, more notification of the curve that there is an existing problem there. Can't do anything but help. I'd like to see what Mass Highway has to say about this, because I'm not convinced that the signalization actually needs to be there. Obviously, I would like to see something there for the pedestrian crossing, and I think that maybe they could take a look and putting that bus stop actually on the site as they do in other locations throughout the city to eliminate that potential pedestrian problem with crossing a major roadway.
I think we'd have to look at that, Mr. Chairman, and work with the MBTA on the bus route changes. That's a bit of an effort to get that.
I mean, I kind of looking at this, Bob, and it's kind of small, but it looks like they could maybe come up with some configuration just to roll in and out, put a little bus shelter there and get in and out, and then the people wouldn't have to.
It's really an issue for the buses heading eastbound, if you will. The westbound buses, there is a stop right out in front, so you're absolutely correct about that.
Right.
With respect to the chief's request for a flashing beacon of some kind, we'd absolutely would put that in. If there's a signal or a crosswalk, we would put whatever warning.
sign.
Yeah, flashing light or a sign or something, yeah.
Okay. Charlie, one second.
Do you want to move on
Yeah.
to the next, or?
Do you have any, Council Patches here? I just want to see if you want to weigh in on this at this time. Coming before the podium for the viewing audience is Council Patch from the Ward 6 area, represents that area.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was for the single. I met with the representatives of Overlook, and they agreed that they would look into a pedestrian crossing a light. We haven't heard anything back until this developed. As far as the single light, I agree with the chief that it should be a flashing instead of a red light, green light type thing. Holding signs out there in election time, I saw that the people getting off the bus and just texting, walking in front of the bus right out into the street, and everybody was holding signs. It was like, wow, how come nobody gets killed there? So the need is there, but you know, it is also with the I would that's why if we have to go with a single light to get the pedestrian, I would hope that you would support that and have them put for the future. We might have to, I know they have intentions of eventually building a Revere again. I think they even put a pad up there in the back. I'm watching. So luckily they can't build in Revere until they build that hotel. So that's why they pick on Malden, keep throwing them on Malden. But again, if we, as far as the traffic light, you know, I'm for it, but again, keep it on flashing until it shows that we need the need for the people coming in and out of Overlook. You could always put it on cycle. Thank you.
Councilor Janino. This is, coming before the podium is Councilor Janino, who is an at-large council from the city of Revere, and she represents the entire city. Councilor.
Thank you. Also here to support my colleague, Councilor Patch. I think that adding any red light, green light type traffic signalization at this location at this time is just not necessary. You know, the pedestrian traffic is there, but I think it's at peak hours. It's there for your morning rush hour and your evening rush hour. So I think to have a regular traffic signal there all day long would just back traffic up more. And if anyone's tried to traverse that area coming from Washington Ave, you know how much of a nightmare it is getting from Park Ave to Saugus Center. So I think that at this time it would be very premature to, if it was installed, have it function in that way. However, if, as Councilor Patch mentioned, it was set up to flash or signal in that way, I think that would be fine for pedestrians, but just a little bit too much at this time. However, if the project ever does expand commercially and retail like it was originally supposed to, and that 50-50 came up and we got some more commercial development and retail in that property,
Revisit it, yeah.
maybe that would be an option, but right now the traffic, I think, isn't sufficient to justify that being a working traffic light all the time. So, thank you all.
Thank you, Councilor. you come to the podium, please identify yourself, the viewing audience, please.
Yeah, I'm Steve Winslow, Counselor at Large for the City of Malden, and very familiar with the Revere. We've been working on the local bike trail. So that's one of the things I just want to point out is that there is an effort now at the state level to, pave the trail along the Revere stretch, so that might actually increase pedestrian traffic in the long run. So that's just something to be aware of. I know there's a design effort that's starting soon, and that may vary, but we will here in the next couple of years. I am supportive of the efforts to manage the traffic here. It's very important for Malden, and Councilor Seek has been very dedicated here. So that's just one of the comments. I mean, I also want to make sure that bicycles are accommodated here as well, that this is one route that people can use through the area to get in and out of Malden and through Boston. So I think it's something, there's not a lot of alternatives for cyclists right now. That's just something that it is a bicycle route. So that's something that if there are loop detectors, the loop should detect bicycles. Under Route 1, the lane widths need to be able to accommodate cyclists. I mean, right now, the storm grates are not bicycle friendly, so those type of things should be considered going forward. But generally, very supportive of the efforts to mitigate traffic for this. Thank you very much. Great.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other comments from members of the Revere Commission?
Yeah, I think I think the commission agrees that it would be foolish not to have the full signalization installed. Keep it, there'll be a controller system on it, and a control box. We can keep it on flashing yellow in each direction and have it pedestrian actuated for pedestrians only. And we accomplish everything we need to and still maintain possible future needs for controlling that intersection in place.
Okay. My only concern would be that when somebody hits it, then I'm going to have to pay to replace it. That's, I'm looking at this plan. Can we set this back like off the road with like bigger, taller masts that can hang it off, so that would lessen the impact of potentially getting hit along the edge of the roadway or the sidewalk? We'd have an arm mast that would hang out over the road as opposed to being a pole right on the...
If I could, Mr. Chairman, that is what they are. They're 30 or 35-foot mast arms, so
Okay.
they would come right out
So
from them.
so the potential for them getting hit is negligible, because you'd be able to set them back far off the roadway.
Behind the sidewalk. Behind the sidewalk.
Where's the control box going, Bob? That's the big ticket
I'm not sure
item.
we worked out that particular detail,
Can we
honestly.
keep that in an area where it's least likely to be hit?
Sure. Yeah, we
And,
could work on that.
and you're agreeing, if we go forward, to put the sign around the curve,
Yes, we are.
signals ahead?
Yes, we will.
Okay.
Any other people in the audience wishing to weigh in on this proposal? Councilor Seeker from the City of Malden.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to also echo the chief, and I'm sorry, I don't know your name, but I too travel this street daily, driving my son to school. Taking a left onto Salem Street to get on Route 1 is a nightmare. I honestly don't think at this time a light at Overlook Ridge Drive and Lynn Street is going to do the trick, but I also think that if they're willing to give us one right now, we don't know what is going to happen when we have an extra 326 apartments down the line. When we discuss in a few minutes, Michelle's going to come back up and talk about a couple more intersections, Lynn Street at Beach, Washington, Wesley, and Beach. We're looking to upgrade those sets of lights so they speak to the set of lights in front of Overlook, so we can keep that traffic flow through Linden Square, Wesley, Washington, all that. So I do think that we should push this forward to Mass DOT, see if it gets approval. If it does, I am absolutely 100% okay with it flashing yellow. I think that it would be great. And if the time comes where we have to revisit it and look, and you decide that it should be a full signal, then so be it. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other people from the audience wishing to participate? Seeing her none, Members of the Malden Commission, would you like to weigh in, or just standing by the proposal as it's written?
Mr. Chairman, if you wouldn't mind, I have one question for Councilor Giannino, Councilor at Large Giannino. Were you saying that you'd like to see it flashing throughout the course of the day, but at the rush hours, that it be engaged, or be it pedestrian engaged? I wasn't exactly clear what you were saying.
No, I think that it should be flashing all the time until, in the future, if we ever need it to turn into a functioning, full-function
Until a working
traffic
light,
light.
then you're all
Yes,
set
but
with that.
currently, the rush hour is the only time that there's, heavy foot traffic there right now. But I don't think it's necessary at all at this time with the amount of construction and everything that's going on there, and to have a fully functional traffic signal.
Okay, no, thank you. I just
Yeah.
wasn't sure. I was taking notes when you had mentioned something about maybe a couple times during the day
Yes.
that would be warranted more.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
The only other thing I'd say, Chair, is that we've actually had a,
You want to make a motion? Okay. Councilor Stringy? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
thank you. I'll be brief.
Okay.
The only other thing I'd say is we've been reviewing with the petitioner quite a bit, and as has been presented, we've been working with them for almost 20 years, and they've done a great job, but the nature of the area there has changed in that it was always presumed that there would be an exit onto Route 1. Now we have to deal with the fact that that's not going to happen, and everything's going to flow through that one entrance. The site plan that was passed out is great, but it hasn't been updated. It's still reflecting a different entrance than's there right now, and we just need to do. Excuse me, Bob?
That plan, if I could, reflects the entrance that's there now. The grade shown on the plan that we just handed out.
The site plan, the master plan?
Yeah, it shows the Overlook Ridge Drive as it exists now. The area that's in tan or in orange was land that's being reserved for Mass DOT, but that actually does show the one we handed out, shows the road in its current location.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. But with that said, we do have a problem up there, something we need to address, and I fully endorse the peer review recommendations and the work that we've been doing, reviewing this on a regular basis over the past year for Lot 12. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. Thank you.
Okay, that takes us up to the vicinity of 122 Salem Street, and we have additional items that are on the agenda here, so if you...
Okay, and just to clarify, I think Mr. Iovan was talking about the master plan. That is not updated. The site plan they handed out shows the existing road, but he was referring to the master plan that was handed out. That shows a connection to Route 1 that does not exist. Okay, so we're on to number 3, vicinity of, oh, we already did 3. No, vicinity of 122 Salem Street, Revere. The concern to mitigate is an existing one-way facing southbound traffic beacon. So there's an existing beacon. The recommendation for mitigation was to install an additional beacon facing north. Do you want me to continue on, or, okay, so I'm trying to, yeah, I don't mean to delay this. So 4 and 5, we can maybe take together: Salem Street, Liberty Avenue, Revere, and Salem Street, Fenwick Street, Revere. There is the concerns to mitigate is several severe horizontal curves that impair vision. The recommended mitigation is to install a two-way beacon at each of those curves, one at each of the curves. Number 6 is Wesley Washington Beach Street, Malden. The concern to mitigate is the Washington Street northbound left and Wesley Street southbound left at Route 60 at Washington Street, Wesley Street. The intersection will degrade from level of service D to E. The recommended mitigation is to upgrade signals, new controllers, remote timing, sequence plan, and to coordinate with area signals. For location number 7 on the map, that's Lynn Street and Beach Street. The intersection is in Malden. The concern to mitigate a poor and degraded level of service and delays. The recommended mitigation is to upgrade signals. That would mean new controllers, remote timing, sequence plan, and coordinate with area signals. Location number 8 is Route 1 southbound off-ramp at Salem Street. That is also in Malden. The concern to mitigate a poor and degraded level of service and delays. The recommended mitigation is to add stop signs at eastbound and westbound approaches. Location number 9, Salem Street, Lynn Street intersection, also located in Malden. The concern to mitigate is the eastbound traffic approaching Lynn Street encounters long delays due to the left turn and right turn. Traffic currently approaches Lynn Street in one lane. The recommended mitigation is to install Mass DOT sign and pavement marking plan of 2017. You have a copy of that in the package. That would include restriping the approach to Lynn Street with 2 lanes, one right and one left. That will require approximately 4 to 5 feet of widening on the approach. Location number 10 on the map is at the Route 1 northbound off-ramp in Malden. The concern to mitigate is the northbound left and right turn moves are delayed by eastbound and westbound traffic. The recommended mitigation is to install stop signs on northbound and southbound approaches. And then finally, you have location number 11 on the map, Lynn Street, Wesley Street intersection, Malden. The concern to mitigate is that the Wesley Street westbound left-right approach is at level of service F for all analysis periods. Major delay is caused by the left turn. The recommended mitigation was to eliminate after testing the impact to adjacent intersections. There's a question for clarification. Is it that the left proposed for elimination is the left off of Wesley or the left lane on to Lynn's, on Lynn Street? So there's a question about that. So those are the 11 locations. That we are recommending safety and traffic mitigation for.
Mr. Buttons.
Could I just provide a couple of pieces of information and clarification with that? So on item number 3, the additional beacon facing north, this is the curve as you're coming from the site heading eastbound towards Saugus. There's a flashing yellow light and there's a curve light that flashes. What they were suggesting is there isn't something on that corner coming in the other direction. There are flashing yellow beacons. I drove through there tonight. There isn't a sign that has a curve on it that's lit up, but there is a beacon facing the other way. So the peer reviewer was looking at trying to make it obvious that there was a major curve regardless of which direction you're coming in. So that's what that beacon is. It isn't another stoplight or anything like that. It's just a flashing yellow light so folks can understand what's going on. Likewise with 4 and 5, there's 2 additional horizontal curves. They were looking for additional beacons basically between the curve and North Marshall Street for both of those 2 horizontal curves that exist there. With respect to 7, the intersections, we absolutely, 6 and 7 actually, we had agreed at the last meeting and meeting before that, I believe as well, that we would replace those controllers and integrate them if there was a signal put up. So there's no issue as far as the developer has with adjusting those controllers and looking at timing. There might be some small improvements we could make with timing of the signal that we would be willing to work with them on. For number 8 and number 10, those 2 stop signs, that's within the Mass DOT right away. So those are putting up stop signs for people coming on and off Route 1. That's another situation where it's a Mass DOT highway, so we would need to work with them to get approvals. That striping plan that you have that was provided in the package, Mass DOT, as you may know, milled and overlaid that road last summer. They didn't get a chance because of the weather to do the striping. So the plan that you have is actually Mass DOT's plan to stripe that once the weather breaks. And when they do, they'll stripe it back to the way it was before, which includes a turn lane to get into the site. I think when the peer reviewer was reviewing it, there was no pavement there, so he didn't know what was there. We actually got that plan from Mass Highway to show that they were in fact going to restore the striping and the markings to the condition that they were in before. And that widening was done during phase 1 in order to make the lane, so the widening isn't required now. There's enough room there for 2 lanes because they were there all along. So I just wanted to clarify those couple of points.
Just one more question, Mr. Chairman, either to you or Michelle. So number 11, is the peer review looking to eliminate that left-hand turn from onto Wesley Street?
It was a little tough for us to figure that out because that that left turn causes issues for folks trying to make the turn, but it was unclear, is it a left turn off of Wesley? Because the buses make that turn to come around and get to the stop at Linden Square. So that would, depending on which direction that we were looking at, that would probably require a T approval or working with them to figure out, is it a buses only left-hand turn, for example? So that was clarification from the peer reviewer.
I have seen, and I'm sure everybody who lives in North Revere, and Council Patch and Council Janino has seen it, that you're trying to take that left turn on from Salem Street, or Lynn Street onto Wesley Street, but that signal at Linden Square gets backed up all the way to Lynn Street. You're stuck in traffic, and sometimes it causes a log jam of traffic. Cars can't go north to south because everything is backed up all the way to Lynn Street. So maybe eliminating that left turn there would solve some problems.
Mr. Chairman,
Chief Guido.
I just want to add one more thing. Mass Highway is part of the repaving project. I've been working with them for a year. They're supposed to be widening the Copeland Circle off-ramp to 2 lanes. And hopefully that'll make less people get off on Lynch Street and they'll stay on Route 1 and come off at the ramp if we get that straightened out. So there is a plan, and I believe it's a change order to the present project. I'm trying to get 100% confirmation, but I've been hounding them monthly to get that done, is why they're here. Because it backs the cars all the way up onto Route 1.
Thank you, Chief. Any other comments from anybody wishing to weigh in on this issue at this time?
Hi, my name is Paul Capizzi. I'm the city solicitor for Revere, but I'm also a resident of North Revere. If you look at the map at number 9 and you go a little south where it says Lynn Street, I live in that sort of the cluster of houses east of the word Lynn Street. So I drive this route every day, coming to City Hall and coming home from City Hall. What I haven't seen mention of, and maybe it wasn't worthy based on the traffic studies, is if you look at intersection number 7, the way motorists can avoid driving Wesley Street and stopping at the stop sign at number 11 is to go to number 7 and take a right. I see that a lot coming off of Washington Ave and Revere, and I see that a lot coming up Squire Road. Rather than take the right at number 6 to get onto Wesley Street to then get onto Lynn Street, they'll go up to Linden Square and take the right there, forcing everybody at the stop sign to have further delay. And then the light at number 7 turns green, allowing the traffic to continue north, and you can be trapped there for quite a while. I don't know what the solution is to that problem. I don't do that because I see it as sort of a discourteous move, although it's much easier if you want to avoid the stop sign to just go to number 7 and take the right. So I don't know if having no right-hand turn there between 3:30 and 6:30 when the rush hour is I know that'd be difficult, I imagine, for the Malden police to enforce, and I don't know what the answer is, but I haven't seen that addressed. I've noticed it's been increasing more and more over the years than it has been in the past. Every day when I go home, I can see a number of motorists, rather than get onto Wesley Street, just go, take the little bit of the left, get to the right, take the right turn on the red, and cause everybody on Wesley Street to delay that much further. And then you can sometimes have a backup right across Squire Road, creating a little bit of a gridlock. It doesn't happen all the time, every time, but it has happened with a great deal more frequency than it used to. And I noticed there's no mention of that at all in this report, and I just wanted to raise it as a citizen who lives over there and drives through there every day and has noticed that, and it's strictly on the Malden side, I understand. But I just wanted to raise that because it hasn't been addressed. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to respond to your question. So the item 6 and item 7, we call for a new timing and sequence plan. So in the plan, the proponent, the traffic consultant for the proponent would explore that option. So that would be part of the overall improvement. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have anything else, and if anyone has any other questions, if anybody, on the site plan review committee can answer, we can try to answer. If you do need additional information in terms of traffic, unfortunately, as I said, the city peer reviewer couldn't attend this meeting, so I'm not sure if we could respond to any of that, or if you need additional information to make a decision, we would have to, ask you to table it and, reconvene when he's present if there are any more technical questions. I too, as I said, have all the traffic study information if anybody wanted to see it, or, question anything. And I know Bob Button is here for the developer and perhaps could answer some of the questions. But if there's nothing else, I just wanted to thank you all for coming to this meeting and being willing to convene jointly, both commissions. Thank you.
Thank you for attending, and hopefully we can get this thing resolved in a reasonable period of time so we can get this project underway. Deb, would you like to speak?
I have one more question.
Just clarification, I guess, procedurally. Are there votes that are going to be taken tonight, or?
There can't be a vote taken tonight.
Okay.
We have to
You
put
want
on
to study it?
We have
Okay.
to study it and then put it on a formal agenda for a public meeting for the public to attend.
Okay.
And then we can take action at that time.
All right, great. Would you make sure
We
you
meet
notice?
regularly on a
Okay.
monthly basis, so, I mean, if we needed to call, if this was an urgent thing, we could call a special meeting if we had to. But the next meeting will be scheduled by Officer Janino's relatively the same time next month. It
All right.
is-
Thank you.
Would a motion to put it on next monthly meeting be in order?
If that's the wishes of the commission, do I have a second to that?
I have one more question.
Chief Guido.
Could Bob get us the cost of a full signalization versus a scaled-down pedestrian version, what the difference would be? Because if it's a lot or it's similar. For the,
It would be a substantial difference given the mass of the foundation.
Right.
All those foundations are in rock. Those poles are not inexpensive.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
the discussion for, obviously, Jim, I think that's a good idea, but if we're gonna put a pedestrian light up and it's gonna be like one of those walkways, it'd be more apt to get hit, so I don't
Right.
have
Well,
the
that was
developer
my
spend the
next
money than me. That's just,
There was an estimate
It
provided.
would give it more protection if we went with the full signal at this point as just putting in a small pedestrian signal, in my opinion. I mean, that may change, but we can talk about this before the next meeting to see whether we want to go as the proposal has been presented, or we scale it down to a pedestrian light. That doesn't have to be determined at this point. Any other questions? Anybody else wishing to comment? Do I have a motion from the floor to adjourn? Do I have a second? I have a motion to adjourn from Chief Bright, and I have a second from Nick Rystrom and James Guido. And, we'll move forward. All those in favor? Ayes. The ayes have it. We're in adjournment. And once again, thank you all for attending, and I appreciate the efforts on behalf of the Malden Traffic Commission.